Nobody recognizes him, nobody helps. By the time someone finally checks, he's already dead. This is not how Lucky Luciano imagined his death. His real name is Salvatore Lucania. The world knows him as Lucky Luciano. He transformed organized crime from street gangs into a corporate empire. But to understand why he dies alone in an airport, you have to go back 50 years. Part 1. The Making of a Gangster. November 24, 1897. Lercara Fridi, Sicily. Salvatore Lucania is born in a town so poor that emigration is the only industry. His father Antonio works in the sulfur mines, brutal, dangerous work that pays almost nothing. His mother Rosalia raises 5 children in 2 rooms. They eat pasta with olive oil on good days. On bad days, they eat nothing. Sicily in 1897 is barely part of Italy. The government in Rome might as well be on the moon. Real power belongs to the Gabalotti, the local strongmen who control everything through violence and intimidation. Young Salvatore notices something. The Gabalotti don't work in sulfur mines. They don't go hungry. People fear them, which means people respect them. In a world with no law, violence is currency. It's a lesson Salvatore will never forget. In 1906, when Salvatore is 9, the family scrapes together enough money for steerage tickets to America. They arrive at Ellis Island with everything they own in cloth bundles. An immigration officer mangles Lucania into something closer to Luciano. The name sticks. They settle on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Antonio finds work in a factory. Rosalia takes in laundry. The children are supposed to go to school, become Americans, live honest lives. Salvatore has other plans. At 14, Salvatore Lucania understands that school is a waste of time. What will algebra do for him? How will knowing about the Revolutionary War put food on the table? The streets are a university. He learns which corners belong to which gangs. He learns that everyone needs protection. Everyone needs someone to handle problems. Everyone is willing to pay. His first arrest comes at age 10 for shoplifting. By 14, he's running a protection racket at his own school. It's simple, efficient, profitable. One day, a thin Jewish kid refuses to pay. "I don't need protection," the kid says, adjusting his glasses. "Why not?" Salvatore asks. "Because I'm already paying someone smarter than you," the kid replies. The kid's name is Meyer Lansky. He's 9 years old and already thinking 3 moves ahead. Instead of fighting, they talk. Meyer explains his more sophisticated operation. "We should work together," Meyer suggests. Thus begins the most important partnership in American crime history. By 16, Salvatore has a reputation. He's fearless, dangerous, and smart enough to learn from his betters. He works for various Italian gangs, watching how the bosses operate, how they divide territory, how they settle disputes. Mostly, he watches them make mistakes. The old mustache Petes, the Sicilian-born bosses, are stuck in the past. They only work with other Sicilians. They refuse to deal with Irish, Jewish, or African-American criminals. "There's no vision," Salvatore tells Meyer one night from a fire escape. "These old men, they think small." "So think big," Meyer says. "What do you see?" Salvatore looks at Manhattan. Millions of people, all of them wanting something illegal. Gambling, prostitution, stolen goods, and soon, once prohibition passes, alcohol. "I see an empire," Salvatore says, "but only if we're smart enough to take it." Salvatore Lucania becomes Lucky Luciano after an incident in 1929 that should have killed him. The stories vary, but what's certain, he ends up badly beaten, with a distinctive scar on his jaw and a drooping right eye from nerve damage. Part 2. The War for New York. April 15, 1931. Coney Island. Joe, the boss Masseria, sits in a restaurant called Nuova Villa Tamaro. He's just finished lunch, pasta, clams, wine. Lucky Luciano, his trusted lieutenant, sits across from him. Luciano excuses himself to the bathroom. 4 men enter: Vito Genovese, Albert Anastasia, Joe Adonis, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. They walk to Masseria's table and open fire. 20 bullets, 6 hit Masseria, in the head, back, and chest. He dies clutching a playing card, the ace of spades. Luciano emerges from the bathroom, smoking a cigarette. He looks at the dead body of the man he's served for years. No emotion, just calculation. "Clean this up," he says to the restaurant owner. Then he walks out into the spring sunshine. The Castellamarese War is over. The modern mob is born. In 1930, New York's Italian organized crime is split between 2 factions: Joe Masseria in Lower Manhattan and Salvatore Maranzano in Brooklyn. Both men are dinosaurs. They don't realize it yet, but they're already extinct. Luciano sees the war for what it is, a pointless power struggle between old men. But he also sees opportunity. He meets secretly with other young mobsters: Vito Genovese, Frank Costello, Carlo Gambino, Tommy Lucchese, and his Jewish partners Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, Louis Lepke Buchalter. "Let them kill each other," Luciano says at a meeting. "When they're weak, we move. We end this war our way." "By killing both of them?" Vito asks. "By killing whoever's left standing." It's a betrayal on a scale that shocks even hardened criminals. But Luciano makes it simple. Join me and survive, or stay loyal to the old bosses and die with them. Most choose survival. The Castellamarese War lasts from 1930 to 1931 and kills between 40 and 60 men. Bodies turn up in alleys, car trunks, the East River with concrete overshoes. Luciano plays his role perfectly, the loyal lieutenant, while secretly negotiating with Maranzano's people. Maranzano calls a meeting after Masseria's death. All the major Italian mobsters in New York gather in a Bronx banquet hall. Hundreds of men, former enemies, now on the same side. Maranzano stands at the front like Caesar. "The war is over. There will be peace. But there must be order. Therefore, I declare myself capo di tutti I capi, boss of all bosses." He lays out his vision. 5 families controlling New York, each with its own territory. Above them all, Maranzano as supreme leader. It's the old Sicilian model dressed up with Roman titles. Luciano sits in the audience, expressionless. "I think," he whispers to Meyer, "he just signed his death warrant." September 10th, 1931, 2:30 p.m. 4 men enter Maranzano's office building in Midtown Manhattan dressed as police officers. They ride the elevator to his floor, walk past the secretary, enter his private office. Maranzano looks up, confused. Then he recognizes one of the faces, Red Levine, a Jewish hitman who works for Meyer Lansky. Maranzano reaches for his desk drawer. He never makes it. The fake cops stab him 6 times, then shoot him 4 times. They walk out calmly, tipping their hats to the terrified secretary. Luciano is 20 blocks away in a restaurant, surrounded by witnesses. Perfect alibi. In less than 5 months, Lucky Luciano has engineered the deaths of the 2 most powerful Italian mobsters in America. He's betrayed his boss, tricked his ally, and murdered his way to the top. Now he calls a meeting, not in a warehouse or back room, but in a downtown Manhattan hotel suite, legitimate and respectable and businesslike. The men who gather represent every major ethnic crime syndicate: Italian families, Jewish operations, Irish, Polish, and other gangs. "I didn't kill 2 bosses to become the 3rd boss," Luciano begins. "I killed them because the old way doesn't work. Fighting over territory, killing each other over insults. It's finished." He lays out his vision. No more boss of all bosses. Instead, a commission, like a board of directors. The 5 New York families each get a seat. Decisions made by vote, not violence. Territory divided rationally, cooperation instead of competition. Most radical, ethnic barriers are eliminated. Italian mobsters can work with Jewish gangsters, whoever. Money doesn't have a nationality. We're not a gang anymore, Luciano says. We're a business, a corporation. Meyer Lansky stands to add the financial details. He's created a system for money laundering, for investing ill-gotten gains in legitimate businesses, casinos in Cuba and Las Vegas, restaurants, real estate, unions. Some old-school gangsters resist. This is too American, too corporate, too soft. Anyone who doesn't like it can leave, Luciano says quietly. But if you leave and cause problems, we'll handle it. Together. That's the point. All of us together are stronger than any one of us alone. Nobody leaves. The commission is born. Leave a like if you want more stories about the rise and fall of history's most notorious criminals. Subscribe for part 2 of Lucky Luciano's empire. The 1930s belonged to Lucky Luciano. His criminal empire grosses an estimated $20 million per year, nearly $400 million in today's money. The operations are diverse: bootlegging, gambling, prostitution, narcotics, labor racketeering, loan sharking. Luciano doesn't get his hands dirty anymore. He's the CEO, operating from luxury hotels and expensive restaurants. He wears $500 suits, dates showgirls, hobnobs with politicians and celebrities. The newspapers call him a criminal mastermind. He's famous, powerful, seemingly untouchable. He should see it coming. Famous criminals don't stay free. But Lucky Luciano thinks he's smarter than everyone else. That's his first mistake. Part 3. The Fall. Thomas E. Dewey is everything Lucky Luciano is not. He's educated, Columbia Law School. He's honest, genuinely incorruptible. He's ambitious. He wants to be governor, maybe president. And he sees organized crime as his ticket to glory. In 1935, Dewey is appointed special prosecutor to investigate organized crime in New York. He doesn't chase bootleggers or small-time gamblers. He goes straight for Lucky Luciano. The problem: Luciano is careful. He doesn't commit crimes personally. His money is laundered. Witnesses are terrified. But Dewey needs something provable. He settles on prostitution, visible, exploitative, and traceable to Luciano's organization. Dewey rounds up dozens of prostitutes, madams, and pimps. He offers deals: testify against Luciano or go to prison. Most refuse. They know what happens to rats. But Dewey is relentless. He threatens, bargains, protects witnesses in safe houses. Slowly he builds a case. Lucky Luciano hears about the investigation and laughs it off. Prostitution, he says to Meyer Lansky. That's the best they can do? Dewey's desperate. Maybe we should take him seriously, Meyer suggests. He's a Boy Scout playing cop. We've dealt with tougher. This is Luciano's fatal arrogance. May 1936, the trial. Lucky Luciano sits in a Manhattan courtroom facing 62 counts of compulsory prostitution. The courtroom is packed. This is the trial of the decade, the criminal mastermind versus the crusading prosecutor. Dewey calls witness after witness. Prostitutes who worked in Luciano's brothels, madams who paid protection money, bookkeepers who handled the cash. One by one, they tell stories of beatings, coercion, and systematic exploitation. Luciano's lawyers attack their credibility. These are criminals and prostitutes, they argue. Their testimony is worthless. But there are too many witnesses, too many details that align. Too much evidence of a coordinated criminal enterprise. Luciano doesn't testify. His lawyers advise against it. He sits silently, his scarred face expressionless, watching his empire be dismantled. The jury deliberates for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentences Luciano to 30 to 50 years in prison, the longest sentence ever given for a vice crime in New York. Luciano, age 38, will likely die in prison. "Your crime is one of the most horrible and vicious ever committed in this state," the judge declares. "You are a menace to society." Dannemora State Prison, also called Little Siberia, is a maximum security facility in upstate New York near the Canadian border. It's cold, brutal, isolated, designed to break men. Lucky Luciano, prisoner number 92168, arrives in chains. Strip-searched, deloused, issued prison grays. The cell is 6 by 8 feet. The food is slop. The guards are hostile. But Luciano is still Luciano. Within weeks, he's running operations from inside. Guards are bribed. Visitors carry coded messages. The commission continues functioning, with Vito Genovese and Frank Costello handling operations. Still, prison is prison. Luciano ages rapidly. His hair grays. His scarred face develops new lines. The drooping eye gets worse. 1942, the War Deal. America enters World War II, and suddenly Lucky Luciano becomes valuable. The U.S. Navy has a problem. German U-boats are sinking ships in New York Harbor. There's sabotage on the docks, fires, mysterious explosions. Naval intelligence suspects Nazi saboteurs are operating with help from corrupt union officials. The waterfront unions are controlled by the mob, and the mob is controlled by Luciano's organization. Naval intelligence approaches Meyer Lansky. "Can you help secure the waterfront?" Meyer agrees, but only if Lucky is moved to a more comfortable prison closer to New York. It works. Luciano is transferred to Great Meadow Correctional Facility. He receives special privileges, private rooms for meetings, extra visitors, better food. In exchange, his organization ensures no more sabotage on the docks. Union officials cooperate with military intelligence. Later, when the Allies plan the invasion of Sicily, Luciano's organization provides invaluable intelligence. He has contacts throughout Sicily who help identify safe landing sites and locate enemy positions. It's never officially confirmed, but the evidence is overwhelming. Lucky Luciano helped the U.S. win World War II. In 1946, Governor Thomas Dewey, the same man who prosecuted him, commutes his sentence on the condition that he accept immediate deportation to Italy. February 9, 1946. Exile. Lucky Luciano boards the SS Laura Keene at Ellis Island, the same place he arrived as a child 40 years earlier. This time, he's leaving America forever. He stands at the railing as Manhattan's skyline recedes. He'll never see it again. Italy is not home. Luciano barely speaks Italian anymore. He has no real connections. The Italian government doesn't want him. The Italian police watch him constantly. He settles in Naples, living in hotels and rented apartments. He tries to run his American operations by phone and courier, but it's impossible. The distance is too great. His lieutenants in New York are making decisions without him. His empire is gone. His power is gone. He's a pensioner living on money sent by former associates who remember the old days. He tries to stay relevant. He makes trips to Cuba, attempting to establish new operations. Dewey and the FBI pressure the Cuban government to expel him. He's sent back to Italy like unwanted cargo. He meets with visiting American gangsters who treat him like a relic. They're polite, even respectful, but their eyes say it all. You're history, old man. Luciano ages rapidly in exile. The sharp, dangerous young man who revolutionized organized crime becomes a bitter, forgotten old man. If you're fascinated by the untold stories of history's most powerful criminals, like this video and subscribe for more documentaries about the rise and fall of empires built in shadow. The 1950s and 1960s pass slowly. Luciano watches from Italy as the mob he created evolves without him. The commission structure remains. Ethnic cooperation continues. But new names rise: Gambino, Genovese, Trafficante. They reference him respectfully but rarely consult him. He's interviewed by journalists writing books about organized crime. He tells sanitized stories, paints himself as a misunderstood businessman. He denies personally ordering murders. He claims the prostitution conviction was a frame job. Some of this is self-preservation. Mostly it's self-delusion. In 1962, he writes his memoir with a ghostwriter. It's full of justifications and evasions. Critics call it a masterpiece of self-serving mythology. The book doesn't sell well. Nobody cares about an aging gangster living in exile. By the late 1960s, Luciano is 64 and in poor health. His heart is failing. Decades of stress, rich food, and cigarettes taking their toll. He moves slowly now, dependent on younger men. He's supposed to meet a producer about a movie deal, one last chance at relevance. The meeting is set for January 26, 1962, at the Naples airport. He never makes it. January 26, 1962, Naples Airport. Lucky Luciano walks through the airport terminal, heading to meet the producer. His heart is racing, anxiety or excitement about the movie. Then the pain hits. It's crushing, radiating down his arm, making it impossible to breathe. He stumbles, tries to reach for something, anyone, but the terminal is crowded and nobody notices one old man among hundreds. He collapses on the marble floor. People walk around him assuming he's drunk or sleeping. Minutes pass. By the time someone checks, he's already dead. A heart attack, massive and fatal. The death certificate lists the time as approximately 11:30 a.m. There are no family members present, no fellow gangsters, no ceremonial send-off. Just an old man dying alone in an airport, surrounded by strangers who don't recognize him. This is not how Lucky Luciano imagined his death. He thought he'd die old and powerful in New York, not exiled and forgotten in Italy. He thought he'd die surrounded by respect, not by indifferent strangers in an airport terminal. He thought he'd die lucky. He was wrong. Epilogue. The Legend and the Accountant. Lucky Luciano's funeral in Naples is small. A few dozen people attend, some distant relatives, some curiosity seekers, some reporters. Lansky sends flowers. Vito Genovese sends a telegram. The commission sends nothing. Officially, they've never heard of him. He's buried in Italy, but in 1962 his family successfully petitions to have his body returned to America. He's reburied in St. John's Cemetery in Queens, New York, finally home, but too dead to appreciate it. The grave marker is modest: Salvatore Lucania, 1897 to 1962. No mention of Lucky, no reference to his accomplishments. In the decades after his death, Lucky Luciano becomes exactly what he wanted: a legend. Movies portray him as a visionary. Books call him the father of modern organized crime. True crime shows analyze his strategic genius. He's compared to corporate CEOs, military strategists, revolutionary leaders. The legend says he modernized the mob, brought professionalism to chaos, created a system that endures today. The legend is not entirely wrong, but it leaves out the cost. It doesn't mention the thousands of women forced into prostitution, the families destroyed by drug addiction, the businesses bankrupted by extortion, the union members murdered for resisting, the neighborhoods terrorized. the corruption that rotted entire police departments and political machines. For every dollar Lucky Luciano made, someone else paid in blood, dignity, or life. Meyer Lansky, the accountant, the brain, Luciano's closest friend, outlives him by 20 years. In 1981, a reporter asks Meyer about his old partner. Lucky thought he was building something permanent, Meyer says, but he forgot that empires built on violence always collapse eventually. The reporter asks if Meyer has regrets. Meyer considers this. He's 80 years old, has spent decades in and out of legal trouble, watched his operations crumble, lost friends to murder and prison. Regrets, he says finally. Lucky and I made millions. We changed history. We lived like kings. But when I look back, you know what I see? Just two street kids from the Lower East Side who got rich and died anyway. The money didn't matter. The power didn't matter. It all ended the same. How? The reporter asks. Alone, Meyer says. We both died alone. The problem with Lucky Luciano's story is that it's too easy to admire. He rose from poverty. He was brilliant. He saw opportunities others missed. He modernized an entire industry. He built something that lasted. These are, on paper, admirable qualities. But scratch the surface, and you find a man who built his empire on human suffering, who ordered murders as casually as others order lunch, who made millions selling drugs and bodies, who corrupted everything he touched. Remember him accurately, not as a genius, not as a visionary, not as a hero. Remember him as a cautionary tale, a reminder that intelligence without morality is just effective cruelty, that success built on suffering is hollow, that dying rich in exile is still dying in exile. In the end, Charles Lucky Luciano was neither particularly lucky nor particularly successful. He was just a man who chose violence, dressed it up as business, and convinced himself and much of history that this made it somehow acceptable. It didn't. 5 decades of power, millions of dollars, a revolution in criminal enterprise. And it all ended with an old man dying on cold airport marble, gasping for air, surrounded by strangers who stepped over him like he was garbage. That's not a legend. That's a warning. Want to dive deeper into the untold stories of organized crime's most powerful figures? Discover more fascinating documentaries about the rise and fall of criminal empires. Subscribe now and never miss a story. The complete histories, the secrets, the forgotten truths, they're all waiting for you.